you're going to go to the podium? Okay, okay.
Because you need to not be behind the...
Okay, okay.
Right.
Good morning. Good morning, guests, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's stop and let people finish.
May we invite all of you to take your seats as we are about to begin the opening ceremony. So together with me is Philippe Zittoun, the Secretary General of IPPA, and myself, Aura, as the Director of the School of Public Policy here. We are the local host, and we'd like to welcome all of you.
Welcome.
So first, we will begin with opening speeches, welcoming remarks from our distinguished local host, the university's representatives, and also representatives from Thai government, as well as representatives from the IPPA, the association. So please, may I call upon Dr. Surashai Sathit Kunarat, President of the Office of National Higher Education, Science Research and Innovation Policy Council, to first join us on stage. And may I also invite Professor Pongrak Sibandit Mongkon, President of Chiang Mai University, to join us on stage. And then we will be inviting our IPPA guests as well. Philippe?
Yeah, so I call the President of IPPA, Ramesh, to join us. I call Evangelia to join us, and myself to join us.
So without further ado, may I invite Dr. Surashai Sathit Kunarat, the President of the Office of National Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation Policy Council, to give us our first welcoming remarks. Chen ka.
Thank you very much, Professor Oron. Distinguished participants, international colleagues, friends in policy and research. It is both an honor and a responsibility for me to stand before you today. Not only to welcome you to ICPP7, but also to recognize the power of gatherings like this to shape the policy landscapes of tomorrow. At my Office of National Higher Education, Science Research and Innovation Policy Council of Thailand, known as NXPO, and the APEC Center for Technology Foresight, APEC CTF. We work at the intersection of evidence, innovation, and strategic policy making. We aim to build systems that are future-ready, resilient, and responsive to societal needs. This is why we are proud to support ICPP7, which brings together some of the best minds from around the world, not just to share our research findings, but to engage in meaningful policy thinking and co-creation. The discussions over the coming days will touch upon the very questions we grapple with as policy designers. How do we embed equity and inclusiveness in policy? How do we anticipate change rather than just react to it? And how can knowledge, academic, local, and experiential be translated to real impacts? Thailand is deeply committed to evidence-based, future-oriented policy making. Events like IPPA ICPP7 are a vital part of this commitment, for they allow us to learn, to listen, and to connect across contexts and disciplines. I hope this conference inspires you as much as your ideas and present inspire us. Thank you and welcome to ICPP7 in Chiang Mai. สวัสดีครับ
Thank you, Dr. Surachai, for your kind opening remarks. May I now invite our very own president of Chiang Mai University, Dr. Phongrak Sibandit Mongkon, to give his welcoming remarks.
Good morning, dear Dr. Surachai Sathit Kunarat, President of the Office of National Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation Policy Council, NXPO, Professor M. Ramesh, President of the International Public Policy Association, IPPA, Professor Evangelia Petridor, editor the Journal of International Review of Public Policy, and Professor Philippe Zittoun, General Secretary of IPPA, and Dr. Oraon, Director of School of Public Policy, Chiang Mai University, distinguished guests, esteemed scholars, colleagues, and friends from around the world, ladies and gentlemen, it is a truly pleasure and great honor on behalf of Chiang Mai University to warmly welcome you all to the 7th International Conference on Public Policy, or ICPP7, held here in the city of Chiang Mai. We are delighted to host this wonderful gathering of public policy scholars and PhD students from across the world. I hope this conference will provide a meaningful forum for exchanging ideas, sharing research, and exploring innovative solutions to the complex policy challenges of our time. We are proud to share that among universities in Thailand this year, 2025, Chiang Mai University is ranked number 44th in the world. This achievement reflects our vision to be a leading university committed to social responsibility for sustainable development through innovation. We are strongly committed to advancing academic excellences, fostering international collaboration, and promoting social responsibilities. This ICPP7 conferences aligns with our goals completely, and we are proud to be able to offer the space and resources for the association to have this conference. Chiang Mai, with its deeply cultural roots and renowned hospitalities, offers a fitting backdrop for such a dynamic exchanges. I invite you to explore the charm of our city, make new connections, and take part in both stimulating academic engagement and enriching cultural experiences. If you have time, please walk around our wonderful campus too in Chiang Mai University, about 5 minutes from here. Once again, welcome to Chiang Mai University and to ICPP7, and I wish you all a fruitful, inspiring, and memorable conferences. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, President Phongrak.
I call now the local host, the one who have suffered with me to prepare all this event, and the Dean of the School of Public Policy, Ora. Yes, yes, you can say.
Thank you. Dr. Surachai Sathit Kunarat, President of the Office of National Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation Policy Council, Professor Phongrak Sibandit Mongkon, President of Chiang Mai University, Professor Ramesh, President of IPPA, Evangelia Petridor, Editor of the Journal of IRPP, and also a good friend, Philippe Zittoun, the Secretary General of IPPA. So during the end of 2021, when the world was just waking up again after the COVID pandemic, a group of 3 brave people representing the association flew to this city, Chiang Mai, to inspect the city based on our bid proposal. From then until now, 4 years has passed. So while the pandemic is over, we are facing alarm tensions in geopolitics, international wars, international conflicts, trade wars, and the obvious climate crisis that can be felt all over the globe equally. Thus, as a conference like this, where we can meet face-to-face, as well as have hybrid capability for our friends who are unable to travel or choose not to fly, this conference is a luxury and a privilege. First, as the director of the School of Public Policy, the local host for ICPP 7, I am deeply grateful today that it's finally here, that I can see everyone's faces in this convention hall and those on Zoom. It is spaces like this conference that we need more of in the world. It is the space to exchange research outputs, to form new research ideas, to stay curious and help each other learn and unlearn. This space is for agreeing as well as disagreeing on careful, respectful articulation of theories, frameworks, worldviews, and the narratives that we subscribe to. This space is for civility and humility. It is peaceful and constructive. It is spaces like this that we are contributing to meaningful collective human knowledge. Such spaces are not so abundant these days when we watch the news on social media. Thus, I invite all of us to be fully present in this conference, to soak in this luxury and privilege that we all have worked hard collectively to protect and build. Second, as a scholar from Asia and Thailand, I am particularly proud that this year's ICPP is in a secondary city of Thailand, as opposed to top cities of advanced economies, or even as opposed to Bangkok. Inequality persists and bias of knowledge and values exist around the world. The more we can amplify unheard voices, shine light on less traveled places, by strategically locating our activities in certain locations, the more, as an association, we are reducing inequalities that we often write about in our academic work. Last but not least, as an old friend to some of you, and as a new friend to many of you, I would like to recommend that you take time to explore this lovely city, cute cafes, mountain trails, hundreds of temples, khao soi, the famous noodle of the north of Thailand, and many more. I hope all of you find what you hope to find here: new theories, new friends, new research collaborators, or maybe even your new self, the self that has been touched by charming Chiang Mai. So once again, welcome to Chiang Mai and ICPP 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Aura. I call Ramesh, President of IPPA.
Good morning. It's such a delight to be among so many friends, current and many more future friends. I have 3 things to say. All start with R. R is my favorite character. The first is to receive you very warmly. There are more than 1,200 participants from all parts of the world. So next time you see a face you don't recognize, a language you don't understand, please smile and introduce yourself. That's one of the key reasons why we are here, to meet more people who we share many things in common with. Second R that I have is reminisce and remember. It wasn't that long ago, 2012, where a few of us, some of us, handful of us, thought about establishing IPPA. We had no idea what we were getting into, except that this was a good idea. And it is, always amazes me that there was an enthusiastic professional group waiting to be served. And we have come as far as we have. Some of those people are still around, and very happy to, but even what is better is that the new leadership is emerging. We have already some young people taking over positions. We will continue to support them and look forward to continued growth with your support. The third is a reminder. So the third R is to remind what public policy is about. It's the only discipline that was established with the explicit purpose of improving collective action. And while we are writing papers, as the editor of a few journals, I see this all the time, but also as a reader of scholarship on the subject, it seems the message is lost sometimes. We get caught up in methodologies. We get up in critiquing policies or policy frameworks or theories. We forget, why are we doing these things? We are in public policy. We should be taking the risk of saying, what should policymakers do? So yeah, it's fabulous, fantastic that we are analytically rigorous, critical, but we need to take the next step. I'll be around for many years to come, hopefully, and keep reminding this, that why are we in public policy? Our mission is to improve how societies are governed and to make people's life better this way. Fourth point, which doesn't start with R, is to please do enjoy Chiang Mai. When we arrived here, the smiling faces that greeted us on the part of our volunteers, they just a little glimpse into what the city is best known for. The warm people, the temples are there, the food is there. Please do that. Those activities are as much a part of the conference as the ideas that will be shared. So, thank you.
I call Evangelia Petridou for IRPP.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I speak to you as one of the associate editors of IRPP. We are a team, and this is the flagship journal of IPPA. Under the leadership of Claudia Radaelli, our editor-in-chief, we are now in our 7th year. We have an online and a printed version. We are fully open access, and we work tirelessly to bring articles to you that, as Professor Ramesh said, it is, at the end of the day, for the public good. Please send us your excellent research. We are happy to receive it. But I am here to present the Best Paper Award. This is the first time that we are doing this, and I'm very, very happy to to announce to you the best paper for the journal this year. Slaying the Dragon of Corruption, Application of Multiple Streams Framework in Anti-Corruption Policy Processes in Devolved Systems of Government in Kenya. This is by Justa Mwangi and Wilson Muna.
Thank you. I think it's me. So, what a pleasure to see you here after Toronto. As each time, it's a great moment to see you again in this, as Ramesh have reminded us, this incredible adventure which began 11 years ago. So, I will insist you on 2 points. I just want to make you some reminder and information about our association. And after this, I will give you a lot of practical elements to survive during the 3 days. First of all, as you can see, what pathway we have followed since the first conference in 2013 in Grenoble. In this conference, when we have launched this idea, as Ramesh have evoked, we was very few, and we imagined that we will be very few in Grenoble. Fortunately or unfortunately for the poor organizer, we was 950, and it was the beginning of the story of IPPA and the conference. So Grenoble, Milan, and Singapore, the first time we was in Asia. First time we was also outside Europe. And the first success also. And after this, we continue, go to Montreal, Barcelona, it was during COVID. We survived even during COVID by a hybrid conference. It was not easy. Toronto, and now Chiang Mai. And as I remind, we have pre-select them a long time ago because when we make the call for bid, we received 2 excellent proposals, Toronto and Chiang Mai, and we say we can keep both. This is why we organize this, and I remember when my first visit, we have the test of COVID to come. So it was a long time ago and a short time ago, and a long way to visit you and to be received by an amazing team around Aura, who help us to discover all the wonderful city and of Chiang Mai, but I'd never been before, like probably a lot of you, the amazing food and the amazing people. So enjoy your stay. I hope you stay a little more day to visit Thailand if you don't know it. So let me give you some elements. The association is a non-profit association, and this association is first built by its member. So as you can see, we have, since the beginning, a large number of members, more than 1,000, with some little variation, but nothing, a lot of which is very stable. And I insist on this. Our individual membership is very important for us. First, because it gives us some capacity to survive financially, but also we are happy to have you as member and to know that the association is composed by so many people. And I invite you to join tomorrow the General Assembly, which is open to all the members when we will present more precisely the life of the association. So we have 2 kinds of members in the association. Individual member and institutional member. Institutional member is a university all over the world who support us. And I want to make a little point because as you can see in the graph, we have since 2 years a little decrease, not so much, but enough to be careful for the year. So the year is not finished. And I want to make a call to see in the list if your university is an institutional member, and if it's not, please, when you come back, go to see your dean, your director, the person who has the money, and ask him or ask her, please, we need to support. It's because we have this support that we can organize the conference, but also that we can develop a huge social policy of grant. So if we continue to have the big support, we can continue to organize nicely. So please, it's a call. I'm happy to present you the executive committee of the association. So since yesterday, and her mandate will begin at the end of ICPP, we're happy to announce you that we have elected a new president, Marlene Brands, who take, yeah. And a new executive committee who will take in charge the activity of this association during 2 years. ICPP is a lot of activity. There is the conference, which is an important activity, the workshop, I come back on this later, and the seasonal school. So I also make some advertisement about the summer school and the summer. Sometimes it's winter. Last time I was in a winter school in Chiang Mai. It was in November, and I discovered that the term winter have not the same meaning that in Europe. So the summer and winter school is linked to what? Our association want to support the new generation. Want that the new generation of PhD students, early career, is immediately international. Because the internationalization of the research is absolutely essential for the development of the discipline. And as I always say all the time, and it is the spirit of IPPA, for us, internationalization of the research is absolutely central, but internationalization never means homogenization. We want the diversity of approach, the diversity of topics. This diversity is very important for us. So we have, since 2 years, we have 8 seasonal schools. And for the 2026, we have already scheduled 5. Doha will be the first one. The Alpes, near Grenoble, if you want to see. So in Doha, you have the sun, and in the Alpes, you will have, in January, the snow. Nairobi, Berkeley, and Padova. Also, if you are interested to host a seasonal school, please come to see us, a person of the stand, myself, or someone of the executive committee, and we can work on this. It's also a great event. So, let's come back to ICPP 7. 1,100 participants, 80% on-site. We are one of the rare conferences who continue to maintain hybrid. A lot of conferences have continued to virtual and on-site, but don't continue the hybrid. We believe that the hybrid is a good idea. First, because we know that there is some people who have not the capacity to travel. We know that sometimes it's not the case of Thailand. There could be a problem of finance, problem of visa, but also a problem of carbon. I come back on this, carbon print. So we continue. But the hybrid is very complex to organize. So please, we try to do our best, and it's never totally easy, but we hope to have a success this time also in Chiang Mai. So we have offered 221 grants. It's amazing support we give. What is a grant? It's a support we give that people don't pay the fees to come, and for the PhD student, they receive a free accommodation. 221 people, 182 PhD students. It's an important social policy that IPPA has developed since a few years with its capacity, this finance capacity. So now you understand also my message about institutional member. So now this time we have 260 sessions of 2 hours. So I hope you enjoyed in 8 multi-sessions. So it means that each multi-session represents around 40 sessions in the same times. 144 papers will be present, and all the time, a lot of local organizers ask me, who is the VIP of the conference? And my answer is always the same, the 1,044 authors. And it's something important in our spirit. 33% is PhD students. All the time, since the beginning, we have this number of PhD students. And for us, it's absolutely essential, because PhD students is the future of their country, the future of the academic world, but also of the non-academic world, because it's also important. Let's have a quick view about where you come from. Like this, you have a view. So, 40% come from Asia. It was also the case when we organized in Singapore. Each time we organize in Asia, we have a lot of people from Asia, and also this is why we turn all the time. And we will continue to turn. An international conference needs to turn. So 31% from Europe, 12% North America, 7% South America, 8% Oceania, and unfortunately, and we try to work about this, 3% of Africa. Here you can see where people come from for the most important country. First, I want to thank India and people from India. So we have begun to launch a summer school in India. Unfortunately, the pollution pushed her to withdraw it. So it means that you have a lot of policy to develop against pollution in India. And I hope that we organize event, and I know that it's proved how India is a very dynamic country. But not only, so you can see United Kingdom, Australia, Thailand. It's proved that we have right to do in Thailand. What's amazing dynamic in Thailand, United States, Brazil, Italy, Singapore, etc., etc. So, program of the 3 days. We begin today by the welcome speech. After this, we have an award ceremony. Now we have introduced all the award ceremony with a time dedicated for this. It was not the case before, and the executive committee have decided to take time for the award ceremony because it's an important thing to give awards to our community. After this, we will have our first plenary session. We call this the keynote plenary session. We will present you before. And after this, you can go to the lunch. Just 1 or 2 points about the lunch. The lunch will be just behind, easy to go. You will have a ticket. The ticket is, in reality, behind your badge. So with the day, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. So if you have nothing behind your badge, it's because you have not paid for the option of lunch. But you can go and buy. After 11 a.m., because until 11 p.m. we manage the registration issue, you can go and buy some lunch if you have forget to take the lunch. You will be welcome. So, and after this, we have another important moment. It's the first multi-session. So I will present you the building. Normally, you will have the app. Please be sure where you will go. Specifically, you know the first multi-session, you don't know really the place and where is the room. So for the panel chair and the author who begin this afternoon, please be 10-15 minutes in advance to be sure that you will be ready on time. We begin at 1:45, each session in the same time in the 2 buildings. So as you can see, we have 2 buildings. I will come back on this. After this, we have the coffee break and the multi-session 2, who begin at 4. If the welcome speech can have 5 minutes in late, the multi-session need to be on time. It's really important. So tonight, we wait you at the welcome drink. All of you is welcome at the welcome drink. It's an amazing old Chiang Mai Cultural Center. It's a very historical part of Chiang Mai, and you will have also a lot of surprise. I don't describe, but be here at 7 in the welcome drink. We will be happy to take a drink with you and to share a moment. Never forget that a conference is an intellectual activity, but also a network activity, and I hope a convivial activity. This is why we be all the time careful of all this moment. First day we begin at 8. I'm sorry about this, but we want that everyone have time to discuss their paper. And we want to not finish too late. I know that even for Thailand, you know, normally we eat at 6. So when I announce them that we don't have any dinner before 8, they look at me a little curiously. Say, what? It's impossible. No, we can't wait. But if we have time for the intellectual food, we need to wait for the local food. So multi-session 3 begin at 8. So please, normally you begin to know where is your room. Be on time. Think also, it's something I forget, to come to upload your PowerPoint before you begin on the website, or to come with it in a USB key. In each room, you will have a volunteer who have a USB key if you come with your computer, but please do this just before the multi-session begin. We have also the lunch, and at 1:30, we begin by another award ceremony and the plenary session too. So we have the multi-session, and at 6:15 we will have the General Assembly open to all members when we just present you our activity report and our finance report. After this, we have the famous gala dinner. You know, it's a tradition since the first ICPP to have a gala dinner. It's open only to the people who have taken the ticket. So you will see that in your badge, gala dinner in yellow. If you, in this gala dinner, it's also in a very famous place. You will see Thai show, you will see an amazing food. So it's an enjoying moment. We have more than 500 people who already have taken the gala dinner. If you have not taken it, you are lucky. You can take it this morning maximum. This morning, beginning of afternoon, we can add we have some ticket available. So please go to the help desk and take your ticket. I think it's important to not miss this incredible event. Friday we begin also at 8, so even if we have a gala dinner the day before, but that's life. Multi-session, lunch, plenary session, and we will finish at 6. So please, I know that some of you is sometime at the end of the 3 day, but it's important that the author who present paper the Friday at 4 have no room empty. So I count on you to also coming to support all the authors until the last moment. And for people who have assisted to the whole session, we will finish by a closing drink. I choose all the wine, so. Just a word about the grant. We have 220 grants coming from different parts of the world. A grant is all people who say that it's difficult for them to pay because they have no support from their university, who have be their paper and their proposal accept, receive a grant. It could be the free fees or it could be accommodation. It's very important for us that the money, the finance difficulty was not something which prevent the capacity to participate to the conference. A new thing that I want to insist today, it's the carbon print. So we all know that the question is come up, and it's very important. We have a roundtable about climate change, climate obstruction, and how it's difficult to have a policy in a lot of countries, in most of the country, to prevent this enormous, this wild or super wild problem. So what we try to do is not to say we withdraw all the conference or we go online. You see the number of people online in the conference have decreased years by years after the COVID. We want to do our effort to make everything possible. So first, we have offered you the possibility to choose or not choose the goodies. So some of you said no goodies, even if you miss probably a wonderful umbrella and craft. Same for the bag. So if you really want to say, oh, I want the umbrella, we have the possibility to sell some of them. And it was painted by hand. So I want really to say how we have appreciated the art, craft, local, which is very wonderful. And for us, doing locally, everything is important. So we make attention to the food, to everything who can contribute to the footprint. You have a glass in your bag. It's also to not use something you go in the waste. So please be careful, be attentive. We have also withdrawn the plastic of this. There is just one problem, but I want to make your attention about this. I discovered this 2 days ago. Sometimes in this wonderful country, you have a lot of humidity. And paper and humidity is not good friend. So sometimes you have a chance to lose your badge. So be careful, and if you see it's become to be fragile, don't hesitate to come in my team, and we try to reinforce. And it's important because you need your badge. And also we have decided to calculate our footprint, including all your travel, because we know that the electricity, the food, blah, but what is really costly is your travel. I know that we would like you swim to come, but unfortunately it's not possible. So we have calculated, we arrived to 2,500 tons of carbon print. And we have made an agreement with the support of the Chiang Mai University to compensate, to buy the compensation. I know that a lot of you is specialists of this kind of policy, and compensation is never the best thing, but we try to do our best. Here is the map. For people who was in Toronto, I can tell you it's more easy to find your room. Because in Toronto it was little a nightmare. So a lot of people was lost. All the weekend we put indication. So here it's easy. You have two buildings. We are in the main building. When you find the auditorium, when we are, it's the main building. Just behind the auditorium, so in this corridor and the corridor here and corridor there, you have the room B, A, and E. Easy. And you have the lunch. After this, and you have the second floor, you have an escalator to go where you can find C and D. Okay, so try to identify your room, and normally you find easily your room here. We have another building which is just 3-minute walk. You just go out and right to the right, and you find the second building where you have the room F and G at this stair. So, sincerely, it's easy. A lot of people in green, which is the volunteer who make an incredible job, will help you if you are lost between the A and the B. Welcome drink. For the welcome drink, you need to take, you can go by foot, it's not far away, but the best is probably take a Grab or to take any transport you want. It was in Old Chiang Mai Center. You will find every address in the app. Gala dinner, the same. Come count toke. I pronounce correctly? Yes. Thank you. I try to work my Thai since a few times. You have the app. It's a new app. We're happy to have created this app. Don't hesitate if there is any difficulty. Normally in this app you have all the indication. In my schedule, automatically, all the moment you have to present a paper is inside, automatically, so don't forget, it's really the moment you need to be here. We can't present without you. And you can find all the indication in the app, so I hope it's facilitated for you the life. It's a new app, so sometime in a new app, because we don't test at this scale of 1,000 participants, we can have some bugs, so don't hesitate to come back to the help desk to tell us if there is some bug. It will be changed for the next time. So, next time, we wait you. The executive committee have just choose. You know what? We have this IPPA, which is a workshop. The workshop is a 20 to 25 workshop during 3 days also, but it's more little, and you can continue the work you have in your panel in the workshop. It will be in Ottawa, 6-8 July 2006. And Friday, I will tell you where we go for the next ICPP. Thank you. Welcome, and have a good conference.
So at this stage, may I invite some of us to take a photo on stage and invite my Vice President for Research, Dr. Vinita, on stage as well to join us.
So, I call Grace to join me. There is a protocol. Okay, so we will continue by the award ceremony. So first, I call Evangelia Petridou, which is part of the jury, it's president of the jury, for the Early Career Award.
All right, hello again. This time I come to you as the chair of the jury for the Early Career Award. Chris Weibel and Nico Zachariadis were also part of this jury. I would like to talk about the award recipient, Mattia Kazula. He is a particularly promising early career researcher in the field of public policy, both in terms of the volume and most importantly of the quality of his academic output, but also in terms of his contribution to the academic community and the profession. Dr. Kazula exhibits an impressive volume and breadth of publications, both single-authored and in collaboration with different author teams. His scholarship demonstrates independence and his ability to drive his own research agenda, centering on two broad trajectories: policy implementation as a distinct object of scientific inquiry in the field of practice, and policy process research at the EU and member state levels. Dr. Kazula is also active in the academic community, as evidenced by his engagement as a co-editor of special issues and his involvement in arranging panels at the ICPP conferences. And I will say here that we had many qualifying and qualified entries, so it was really an honor to look at everyone's achievements and decide on Mattia. Thank you.
Yes. Please say something.
Good morning to all. I sincerely thank Professor Petridou for the great words he spent toward me and the jury for having acknowledged the merit of my research path. I do not think this is the time to speak about my research result, but I believe it's the time to speak about the importance the International Public Policy Association give to the work of early career. As many of you, I'm also, of course, also part of other international scientific association, but I believe that the attention provided by the IPPA to the work and the activities of PhD students and postdoc represent an unicum across the world. Also, based on my experience, I believe that this unicum and this attention can be summarized along three main elements. The first one is diversity and pluralism. What I found in this association over the year is a total respect of the diversity in terms of methodological, empirical, and theoretical knowledge. By providing for early career scholar a place and an inclusive dynamic community where early career can contribute to the development of the association together with established research in public policy and public administration. The second element is about the great amount of financial opportunities provided by this association for early career scholars to regularly attend to all the activities organized by this association, such as winter school, summer school, conference, workshop, and other. The third element is about knowledge dissemination. Early career scholars can find perfect outlet in which they can present the result of their research output, such as this newsletter, but also, and above all, the established journal and the book series of the association, where principles such as inclusiveness, diversity, and above all merits and freedom of research are respected. I hope that there's a few words will be a push and opportunity for all the PhD students and the early career scholars that are starting to invest their time and their effort in this association to continue to do that. Then to conclude, thank you very much again, the jury, for having acknowledged the merit of my research path. Thank you very much to the IPPA for the opportunity provided to me over the year and the great attention they provide to the work of early career scholar.
Now I call Grace Kostad for the Career Award.
Good morning. The International Public Policy Association Career Award is awarded biennially. Okay, I'll start again then. The International Public Policy Association Career Award is awarded biennially to a scholar who has made an outstanding contribution in advancing the field of public policy and/or public administration through their research publications, professional service, mentorship, and institution building. It is my distinct pleasure on behalf of my fellow jury members, Mike Howlett and Frank Fisher, to announce that the winner of the 2025 Career Award is Dr. Diane Leslie Stone. Dr. Stone is currently professor and chair of global policy and academic director in the Florence School of Transnational Governance at the European University Institute. Professor Stone is a highly prolific scholar whose numerous publications over her career have significantly advanced the study of public policy. Her scholarship and publications on the role of policy think tanks, policy transfer, global public policy, and transnational administration have significantly advanced the discipline and been especially path-breaking. She has numerous citations. They're absolutely mind-boggling in number. And Dr. Stone has also, I want to point out, played an important role in building institutions that advance the discipline of public policy, including serving as the inaugural dean of the School of Public Policy at the Central European University. She is also a founding member and vice president of the International Public Policy Association, where she has worked over the years very carefully to help us build the organization. Diane has also served on the editorial boards of several scholarly journals and academic presses. Professor Stone's contributions in the field of public policy extend well beyond academia. She was a member of the secretariat that launched the Global Development Network in 1999, and she subsequently served on its governing body. Diane has also served on the Council of the Overseas Development Institute. And finally, and I know this is really important for so many of us, Professor Stone has been an incredible mentor to early career researchers, including by inviting them into her scholarly networks and co-publishing with them. She is, in my view, the very epitome of a scholar who demonstrates excellence in scholarship, mentorship, and professional service. So Diane, it's my distinct pleasure and honor to award this career award to you today.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here, and I'm very honored to receive this career award. And I'd like to thank the selection committee, the person or persons who nominated me, and the association, IPPA, for thriving and providing scholarly recognition like this one, the Early Career Award, and all the other awards that people will be receiving. So I'm going to do this in decades. Okay, my career has now entailed 40 years of studying think tanks. This is where I started with my PhD topic, which my then head of department dismissed as a cottage industry. Now, this industry has now grown to over 20,000 think tanks worldwide, and it is pretty much, think tanks have pretty much informed what I've done ever since. And one thing is that think tanks led me into the study of policy transfer, because that's what think tanks do. They spread ideas. And this is a topic that IPPA has thoroughly investigated as well, if the number of panels at IPPA conferences on policy transfer and policy diffusion are anything to go by. Global public policy and transnational administration has occupied me for the past 20 years in both teaching and writing. And in the past decade, I've also been exploring the interface of diplomatic studies with governance. These latter interests involve what Albert Hirschman referred to as transgressing disciplinary and academic boundaries. And I think this is something that policy studies and policy scholars do very, very well. When I started in academic life, the boundaries between the domestic and the international still felt very real and quite fixed. But it has become clear today that the challenges that shape our world, whether it's climate change, migration, financial crises, these problems do not respect borders, nor should our scholarship. It is a transdisciplinary ethos of questioning, challenging assumptions, and learning from other fields of inquiry that I believe will also help keep IPPA alive, fresh, and transnationally relevant. Studying transnational governance has meant grappling with uncomfortable questions. Who governs in a world without a global government? How do we hold power accountable when it is diffuse, networked, and very often quite opaque? And what does legitimacy mean in transnational settings where decisions are made quite far away from the communities they affect? These kinds of questions have no easy answers, but they do matter. They matter for the billions affected by decisions made in international institutions, in multi-stakeholder initiatives, and other hybrid governance innovations that are now quite extensive and form an infrastructure of transnational governance. And they also matter, these questions, because in a time of rising nationalism and distrust in institutions, the very idea of cooperation beyond borders is under strain when transnational governance is most needed. And we also need scholars, like the people assembled here today, to address these questions and concerns that affect us now and also for future generations, and what might become in the future a planetary public policy or set of policies. So thank you very much.
I call now the person from the first Keynote Roundtable to join us.
Okay, so now you're held hostage to stay here for our keynote roundtable for ICPP 7. May I invite our esteemed, well, first of all, let me invite Ramesh up here with me as we are co-moderating this session. And then I would like to invite Professor Maria Ella Atienza on stage, as well as Professor Leong Ching on stage, and Professor Naresh Singh on stage as well, please. So we're in a confused.
Is that order?
Oh yes, Maria first, Ching, and then Naresh. I think it's correct. I think it's correct. Maria, you're correct. Okay. No, you're correct to sit here. Yeah, yeah. It's an orange. Okay, so the topic of the keynote roundtable is From Policy Takers to Policy Shapers, Asia's Transformation in Public Policy. So it's our deliberate idea, since we are hosting the ICPP here in Asia, to highlight the changes and the evolution of Asia's public policy landscape. And we would like to highlight how in Asia we are becoming policy shapers rather than policy takers, both in terms of practice and in terms of research agendas. So I, together with Ramesh, will co-moderate this session from now, 10:15 to 12:15. Let me do the honor of introducing our colleagues who are here already on stage with us. And they are actually well-established colleagues who do not actually require introduction. However, to honor who they are and their wonderful work, please allow me to introduce their work to you. First is Professor Maria Ella Atienza. May I call you Ella? Yes. One of Philippines' most distinguished scholars in political science and public affairs. Professor Ella is Professor of Political Science at University of Philippines, Scientist 3, University of the Philippines, Diliman. So she previously served as chair of the Department of Political Science and director of the UP Third World Studies Center. She is currently the editor of the Philippine Political Science Journal, which is Scopus indexed. I'm going to have to skip a little bit because of the very long accomplishments. But her educational background spans Asia and Europe. She holds an BA, MA in political science from UP Diliman, an executive master's degree in European and international relations from the University of Amsterdam, and a PhD in political science from Kobe University, Japan. Professor Ella's research spans critical areas such as local governance and devolution, human security, health policy, and politics and constitutional reform. She is widely published in international journals, including Asian Survey, Asian Pacific Viewpoint, Natural Hazards, and the Asian Journal of Comparative Politics. And her work has been published by publishers such as the Brookings Institute, Palgrave Macmillan, Routledge, ICS in Singapore, and Springer. So among her notable works are the books, one of her books is called Urban Poverty in the Wake of Environmental Disaster and A Better Metro Manila. So these offers empirical insight and policy relevance in addressing governance challenges in post-disaster and urban contexts. So her dedication to engage scholarship is evident in her work in the Philippine legislative bodies, government agencies, civil society groups, and the media. She actively mentors and teaches both undergraduate and graduate courses, including qualitative research methods, local politics, and comparative politics. She is also currently a visiting professor at Anglia Ruskin University in the UK, and collaborating on research related to Filipino nurse migration and integration, an example of her continuing commitment to research that bridges local realities and global trends. So please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Maria Ella Etienne to the roundtable. Yes. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce Associate Professor Leong Ching from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, the National University of Singapore, whose pioneering work bridges the discipline of philosophy, information technology, and public policy with a particular emphasis on water governance in Asia. As of yesterday, Dr. Ching was just appointed acting dean for the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. Congratulations on more administrative work. Just joking. So Dr. Ching holds graduate degrees in philosophy and information technology, and her field research focuses on the institutions and governance mechanisms that shape water management across Asia. She is widely recognized for her behavioral experiments, such as studies on opt-in monitoring, and her commitment to evidence-driven policy design, especially in addressing urban sanitation and environmental challenges in developing contexts. Her recent projects include a game-theoretic model of environmental behavior through which she continues to explore how incentive structures and behavioral insights can improve sustainability outcomes. So as a scholar, Dr. Leong Ching exemplifies rigorous transdisciplinary public policy research. Her work not only advances academic understanding of governance and institutions, but also offers concrete policy solutions for pressing environmental challenges. So please join me in welcoming Associate Professor Leong Ching to our roundtable. Thank you. And then it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Professor Naresh Singh, who is also a globally respected thought leader in the emerging intersections of complexity science, applied spirituality, and public policy. Professor Naresh served as the executive dean and professor at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy in India, where he is still the professor. I know that he has recently stepped down from executive dean, just very recent. He is also the director of the Center for Complexity Economics and Applied Spirituality for Public Policy, and co-director of the Center for Legal Empowerment of the Poor. He holds a transdisciplinary PhD in environmental sciences and brings with him more than 3 decades of experience in senior policy roles at the United Nations Development Program in New York and in the federal government of Canada as well. Professor Naresh's work integrates rigorous scientific inquiry with ethical and spiritual reflection. His teaching and research span complexity sciences, systems thinking, legal empowerment of the poor, and the growing field of applied spirituality. So his most recent edited volume, called Applied Spirituality and Sustainable Development Policy, was published in December 2023 by Emerald Publishing in the UK, and he's currently editing a new volume on global ethical perspectives on artificial intelligence. Importantly, Naresh brings to his work a deep knowledge of Asia's rich philosophical traditions, which informs his holistic and values-based approach to governance and sustainable development. His scholarship bridges traditions of wisdom with cutting-edge systems thinking, offering a unique and necessary contribution to the future of public policy. So over the years, he has been visiting scholar at leading universities in North America, including Harvard, Boston University, Fordham, McGill, and Waterloo. He has served as consultant to major international organizations, such as UNDP, the Commonwealth Secretariat, FAO, ILO. So a long list and highly accomplished as well. So please join me in welcoming Professor Naresh Singh. So we have three speakers. Ramesh, would you like to
No, let's
walk
just
us?
get started.
Yeah, I took a long time for the introduction.
Yeah, that's right.
Clearly.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
hear the speakers. We'll
Yes.
start with Ella. Yes, please.
To our distinguished guests and members of the local organizing committee, the University of Chiang Mai, and of course the members of the International Public Policy Association. It's a distinct pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be invited to be part of this keynote panel, the first keynote panel of this conference. I'm honored but a bit insecure in being invited in this keynote panel because this is not my usual network. I usually do public policy research, but I'm a political scientist by training, and normally in the University of the Philippines, of course, those who are more active in the IPPA network would be our colleagues from the National College of Public Administration and Governance. So Dr. Ebby is here, and I see a number of colleagues from the Philippines. But of course, I accepted the invitation, and with the help of Aura and Ramesh, I was able to flesh out what I need to do in the next 15 minutes. So what I'll try to do is just to give an overview of the importance of public policy research and practice in Asia, and to give some insights about public policy research and practice in the Philippines, as well as the challenges. And this is based mainly on my experience as a researcher, doing research on a number of public policy issues, as mentioned by Aura earlier. And at the same time, because of the nature of my work, I was involved in a number of research centers in the university and networks or organizations nationally dealing with evidence-based research to give policy advice to government. So, but the basic focus in the next 15 minutes or so is to talk about Asia and the Philippines public policy terrain and challenges, and how they shape policy trajectory and the region's role as both a policy laboratory and a source of policy directions for public policy studies. I know that not all of you are familiar with the landscape of Philippine public policy, but I want to present the Philippine experience not only as a single unique case study, but actually to draw comparisons and possibly raise certain important insights about public policy making and research and practice in Asia, but also to see commonalities in terms of challenges and opportunities. Okay, so why is Asia important in public policy research and practice? In several research articles and fora, the 21st century has been mentioned as the Asian century. And this is in reaction to the 20th century emergence of public policy as a distinctive scholarly field, which generally can be considered more dominated by Western approaches. So the idea of calling the 21st century the Asian century in the area of public policy field presents a global milieu where economic, cultural, political, environmental, and social issues are heavily influenced by the Asian region. Of course, in the last few decades, we've seen many areas in Asia seeing rapid economic growth and playing more prominent roles, but also now facing many social, political, environmental, as well as geopolitical and security issues that require policy responses, particularly those that would actually take care of the more vulnerable. Asia also is experiencing growth in public policy education and research, and this can be seen in the growth of schools, degree programs, associations, publications, and scholars in the field of public policy. And there are now more and more scholars in Asia claiming or proclaiming themselves as public policy experts or researchers. But of course, there are critics when we talk about Asia in a general sense or talk about an Asian century in public policy, research, and practice. There are those who say that it is another false Western construct, masking the very stark distinctions among the countries and groupings composing the geographic area. And of course, we know the diversity in terms of political, economic, social, and cultural structures within many of the countries in Asia. Nevertheless, when we talk about the Asian century in public policy research and practice, this provides an idea or a critical proxy for sparking thinking about how globalization and its related dilution of territorial boundaries and generation of network society, sociocultural, environmental, and migratory transmutations may affect, transform, or even revolutionize public policy in terms of re-examination of constructs, learning from the practices and approaches beyond the usual models that we use, and transforming the conduct of public service to meet the new challenges of the 21st century. Okay, now let me go to public policy research and practice in the Philippines. There's particular importance why I choose this photo. This photo, for those not familiar, is an example of one of the community responses to the long lockdown policies and the insufficient responses to COVID-19 of the Philippine government. We call them the community pantries in the Philippines. And this is an example of a way where the people themselves, communities and grassroots organizations, and even the non-organized challenge the very restrictive policies of the state and telling them to actually, telling them that they need to do more and their policies in combating the pandemic, the lockdown, and also the economic and social welfare programs were insufficient to address the needs of the people. So very briefly, I'll discuss the public policy terrain, or as a political scientist, what we call opportunity structures for public policy and the major issues or challenges for policy reform. The research approaches that we usually use when we conduct public policy research in the Philippines, the main challenges for academics and scholars in public policy research and advice, and the opportunities for academics in the area of public policy research, which I hope may also bring in comparative insights as well as points of interest when discussing how we move forward in terms of public policy research. So what's the public policy terrain or the political opportunity structures and challenges, as well as the enduring problems in Philippine public policy? It's interesting to note that like most Asian countries, our political system has been modeled after Western models, particularly the United States model, but we have Filipinized or indigenized our actual practices. So what you may call, for instance, political parties in the West may not be functioning as political parties the way you expect it in the Philippines. So for instance, of course, we have a presidential unitary system where you have the executive branch led by the president, a legislative branch where you have two houses of Congress, and we have a very strange Senate, which is nationally elected rather than region-based. We have, as established by the post-people power, post-1986, 1987 Constitution, on paper, a very strong judiciary with very strong role in public policy making. We have the bureaucracy, which increasingly have been turning to, many departments have been turning to academics and experts for policy advice, policy evaluation, and research. An important aspect of the policy terrain in the Philippines or the political opportunity structures for policy reform would be our local governments. While we have a unitary setup, we have devolution through the 1991 Local Government Code, and we have a single autonomous region in the Bangsamoro area in the south. And local governments in the Philippines have seen cases of policy innovations in dealing with many of the social, economic, and political issues confronting them. We have a very outspoken and very active media, as well as a result of the people power in 1986, we have a very large civil society, and some parts may be considered uncivil by some. However, there are problems because some would say, how come after 1986 you have a lot of policy reforms dealing with corruption, dealing with good governance? How come you still have problems? And part of the research of many of us, particularly those that deal with this particular frameworks, have pointed out a lot of things. Executive dominance, and we have seen this very clearly across post-1986 presidents, and it was very dominant starting 2016 to 2022 under the Duterte administrations. We have very weak political parties, very unclear programs to actually distinguish one political party from another. The dominance of political elites and dynasties, what John Seidel called oligarchic democracy, and the dominance or the prevailing patron clientelism across national and local levels. The judiciary has been undergoing a lot of judicial reforms, has been very outspoken, but until now, it's very weak compared to the other branches of government, and we still have a problem in terms of improving our rule of law to actually provide speedy, equitable justice for all. Corruption still exists, and the bureaucracy in the Philippines is not as strong or held in high regard compared perhaps to other countries, not only in Asia but other parts of the world. We do have a lot of civil society organizations, but their spread across the country is uneven. Ongoing since 2016 have been threats to human rights and civil society organizations. These That's why many people are reviving their interest on the Philippines, particularly because of democratic backsliding and the rise of populism. As mentioned earlier by Ora in her remarks, the Philippines is also not a stranger to misinformation and threats to media practitioners and media groups. And obviously, there's a lot of work to do in terms of public policy to deal with inequality and poverty. In terms of research approaches in studying public policy, I'm using my political science hat here and not the usual frameworks in terms of looking at public policy, but we have a very eclectic set of approaches that have been used in the study of public policy. There are those that do new institutionalism, those that focus on behavioralism and rational choice. Some scholars still do critical approaches using Marxism, and there's a growing interest in using feminism in looking at public policy. And there are those doing more interpretive approaches, particularly those that want to highlight more indigenous, more community-based approaches to public policy. There's a multiplicity of methods in many of the research that we do, and there are definitely some efforts at indigenization and bottom-up analyzing and theorizing. However, there are limits and challenges for research and scholarship in public policy in the Philippines. For one, government funding for social science research and research centers in state universities is generally minimal. And this is the experience, for instance, of our university, which is considered the National State University. We have the Center for Integrative and Development Studies, which is supposed to be the policy arm of the university in providing policy advice to different sectors, but most of the funds go to paying for personnel. Of course, this does not mean that our think tanks, our private think tanks are in a better position. Some of the best think tanks have folded up because of the lack of donors and the lack of succession in terms of leadership. At the same time, there's still the public's lack of trust and confidence in academic expertise, and this has been exacerbated by, in recent years, network disinformation and fake news, particularly in social media. The state and politicians' attitude towards academics and research also prevent more work and collaboration. While I have mentioned, and I will go to the next slide in terms of opportunities, more interest now in evidence-based research for policy advice, there are still those who lack appreciation for the research process, and in the past few years, academics, even in public universities, have been attacked by government forces for red tagging, and we are accused of being sympathizers of the communist insurgency. So it's really still a difficult time in the universities across the Philippines. But there are opportunities for greater role of academics in public policy. And I think this goes not only for the Philippines, but for many countries in Asia. There are so many policy issues, innovations, practices, and approaches that need attention and engagement, not only by Asian scholars, but also by comparativists, those doing comparative public policy. Despite the lack of support, many university-based policy research programs, research centers, and independent think tanks have been working very hard to work for the interests of the vulnerable in their policy advice. And there's a need to empower and promote them further and to make them more inclusive. And there's also a need to actually develop more of this public policy expertise and centers outside of Metro Manila. There's a particular body, the National Research Council of the Philippines, established by law and is placed under the Department of Science and Technology. This is the only collegial body of scientists and researchers spanning the natural sciences to the social sciences and humanities and the arts. And it's actually mandated to give policy advice to government. However, in its more than 90 years of existence, it is only now that government is paying attention to many of the work of the National Research Council of the Philippines. But this is a very big opportunity now, and it allows multidisciplinary cooperation on a number of policy issues, because as we have discussed, many of the policy issues require not just public policy expertise, but also the expertise of those dealing with these issues, like those working in medicine, those in engineering, those doing environmental science. The Philippine Institute for Development Studies in the Philippines is the government's primary socio-economic think tank, but it's also the best in the world, from being just givers of policy advice, particularly on economic policy. It has become the center mobilizing and encouraging researchers and scholars from different fields to work together to deal with many public policy issues. There's a network of public policy scholars actually in the Philippines. I attended before the pandemic the first conference of the Philippine Public Policy Network, and we hope it will continue to grow and gather more members in the Philippines. Scholars also need to serve as public intellectuals and provide more public engagement. And of course, many of us have been subjected to the need to publish because of university rankings. We do have to focus on producing other outputs beyond publications, like policy briefs, social and traditional media engagements, consultancies. And these are very important, in particular, in terms of our role in promoting public policy that will benefit the vulnerable sectors. At the same time, also, individual and institutional networks exist between researchers and scholars on public policy with government agencies at different levels, the private sector, civil society, the grassroots, plus foreign counterparts and donors. And one important recent development in the last few years was the incorporation in our foreign policy and the budget of the Department of Foreign Affairs, the promotion of Philippine studies across many countries, and hopefully public policy research can be incorporated here. And based on our experience, and perhaps as a final note, as a closing remarks, it's important to learn from each other. We do appreciate all the learnings and all the lessons from scholars from outside Asia, but collaboration should also be pursued in terms of learning from each other, respecting each other, and also making sure that everybody contributes to the development of public policy and public policy reforms that would actually benefit the people. Thank you very much.
That was enlightening. But now we move on to Professor Leong Ching from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. Please come up.
Thank you, Ramesh. And if you're thinking I look nothing like this picture, it's true. This just is proof that nothing ever dies on the internet. This is an old picture of myself, which probably only Alex will recognize. It was when we were both PhD students, taken by Michael Ruska, sort of messing around with his camera. So that was my first picture when I was an assistant professor. Thank you very much for giving me this time to speak. I want to thank our keynote for inspiring remarks, and also our host, Aura, who is, of course, a good friend and a former colleague, on an important reminder that it is a real privilege and a luxury to be here and to speak with each other, and how important it is to be really fully present and to be in the company of intellectuals at a time where there is so much conflict and war and terror and insecurity, and where higher education across the world has become quite different from when we first started. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I also want to say my remarks will be very brief because there's nothing more dangerous than giving a lecture to a room full of professors. So I just wanted to show you some interesting things I found. I have no expertise in Asia versus the rest of the world, but I do want to show you a little bit about behavioral public policy, which is the field in which I work. So behavioral public policy is a growing field within the policy sciences, a reminder that mass collective action, as Ramesh has said, behavior, public behavior, is so important and so critical to human well-being. However, you will see that the research coming from weird countries, and which is not my term, I just think it's a real nice one. It's dominated by a specific group of countries, and a large part of the population of the world in Asia is not represented in this research. I think that's first an important point to say. And second, to say that Asia really has some difference in the way that we look at specific mass behaviors. So this is a very famous experiment of what morality means. What is right or good to do in a society varies from society to society. I say that not to say that all Asian societies behave in the same way. I say that to say that all societies are different from one another. And as Philippe earlier said, we're not homogeneous. And to recognize that we're international is really so important. So what is the point about Asia? Well, this is kind of just a plug to say that this is a real neat experiment I did, and which has been published in Policy and Societies, for which I thank the editors for their comments. It's a real fun thing I did. So are people honest across the world? And if they're not, is there a public policy or an intervention that we could do to make them more honest? So I did this in 9 countries with 35,000 people in a dice roll experiment. In a dice roll experiment, you can't tell if any particular person is honest. But if your sample is 35,000, you can tell whether people are honest in general. So here's the finding. The blue dots were the original results of the dice roll. It shows, so I want to draw your attention to the dice roll experiment. It's something like this. You roll 1 to 6. If you roll 1, there is no money given to you. If you roll 6, you get $5. And the only people who will know what number you actually rolled is you and God, if there is a God. Right? So there's nobody that knows what number you rolled, but the experiment is this. You report to me what number you rolled, and I will pay out to you. I mean, or the National University will pay out to you. This is an extremely expensive experiment. It was $250,000. But, so this is the finding, right? It shows that most people were dishonest, which if everybody was honest, you get 3.5, because you get a 1 in 6 chance of rolling 1, of rolling 2, of rolling 3, of rolling 4, and so on. But you can see there are no angels among us. Right? Every country, in the blue dot, this is the blue dot that I draw your attention to. In the blue dot, and my apologies that I did not mask the countries, but this is science, and I know I have many colleagues from Brazil here, and some of which who are my neighbors in the hotel. So, you know, the thing is that the different countries are not different because they're Asia or not Asia. They're just different. So, and there are varying levels of honesty. At 3.5 is perfectly honest. The closer you are to 3.5, the more honest you are. So we're all different And we're not different along the lines of whether we're Asians or not Asians. That's my sort of first scholarly discovery, which is not a discovery. I mean, it's no surprise to any of us who recognize the differences among us. But, and this is the power of what Ramesh had earlier said, all of us who study public policy have this power to influence and impact the society to make it better. And in my field of behavioral public policy, we study interventions and incentives for action. If people are not perfectly honest, what could we do as scholars, as experimenters, as empirical finders of facts to make them more honest? What will make people move from the blue dot to the red dot? For the answer, read the next issue of Policy and Society. No, I'm just going to tell you the answer. Right? The answer is this. We put in an intervention, an opt-in monitoring, which means we gave people the option of rolling a dice on their own, which means roll a real physical dice, roll it on the server, or roll it in the head. My instructions in the experiment was quite simple, like roll it however you want. We could do that, or we gave the people to roll the dice on an NUS server. To our surprise, 85% on the average, 85% of people opted to roll on the NUS server. And in the instructions we had put, you have a choice to roll it on the NUS server where the researchers may observe your dice roll. And of course, the truth is I've got better things to do with my time than to observe dice rolls, so I didn't observe any dice roll, right? I didn't look at anything. But the fact that I offered this choice and 85% of the people took it up, that is what moved the needle. And you see the needle moved almost the same. All of us, whatever country we are the same sometimes. So isn't this interesting? And isn't this powerful? So I'll leave you with this experiment to say that whether we're from Asia or not, we all can be moved by the power of ideas. And I will ask that all of us today and for the next few days exchange ideas, and then we can truly transform our societies. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. And now, of course, we have Naresh taking us to the spiritual level. Please share your thoughts.
Thanks very much, Ramesh. Thanks, Ora. And thanks to my panelists who have set the context really well. You know, there comes a time in the evolution of any academic discipline when the practitioners of that discipline must pause and take stock as to whether their scholarship, their published outputs, their engagement, advocacy, etc., are matching the problems that they should be addressing. I think we would all agree that since the time of Harold Laswell, you will notice that I'm not going to use any slides. There will be enough slides in this conference. I myself will be having 2 technical sessions later on, but just a short agenda-setting kind of talk I want to have with you. I think we will all agree that public policy scholarship since the time of Harold Laswell, 1934 or thereabouts, so nearly 100 years, one might say, we have produced a lot of work, a lot of salient work, and we have addressed a lot of important policy challenges, important public policy challenges, even corporate policy challenges. If you, however, stop and reflect for a moment, and you recognize words like wicked policy problems, I mean, and now super wicked policy problems, and even more recently, words like meta-crisis and poly-crisis, we recognize that while the scholarship is advancing and evolving really well, at the same time, we seem to have a divergent evolution of the problems that are growing equally well. And so there seems to me to be a mismatch between the directions of our research and many of the public policy problems facing the world. If you take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, I think we can all now conclude that we will not be achieving most of those goals, noble as they are. It is now 5 years before 2030, and maybe it's time for us to begin to think what must happen post-2030. I say this to provide global context for what I believe must truly become an Asian 21st century. And I want to propose a leadership agenda, a geopolitical leadership agenda for Asia. So what's going on? After 30 years as a public policy practitioner in the United Nations, in the federal government of Canada, and in more than 50 countries around the world, I looked at things like climate change and species extinction and economic inequality and social exclusion, and the list goes on. And I wondered, why is it that these problems continue to persist in spite of all that we do? Now, I'm not arguing that scholars can solve all of these. Politics has its own way, and we have a political scientist with us as well. But I am arguing that something in my own practice and my engagement with senior policymakers around the world, I figured something fundamental was missing. And after some research and deep reflection, I have concluded that that missing dimension in public policy is the inner dimension. So we all know public policy happens in the external collective space, as though there is no inner dimension of humans as they engage with that external collective space. And that is what I started to explore. We have concluded, and we being a bunch of faculty at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, where I teach and research, we set up a center called the Center for Complexity Economics, Applied Spirituality and Public Policy to investigate whether academically we can do work that draws from our inner knowing, we can do work that draws from the wisdom traditions, many of which are in fact in Asia: Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, Advaita Vedanta, Sufism, and so on, and the list goes on. And whether the mystical insights, that inner knowing, whether that can be valid social science scholarship, whether that can be published in peer-reviewed journals, and whether it can begin to take its place in political advice and in public policy work. At the beginning, as you can well imagine, it was really disappointing and frustrating, and no serious public policy journal will take us seriously. No review panel will take us seriously. But that has now begun to change, and we are encouraged that our work is now beginning slowly to get attention and to get publications, and there are a few PhD scholars, bold souls, who are prepared to begin to research in this area. So what do we do? What is it that we are bringing and we are proposing as an important missing dimension in the leadership agenda that Asia is perhaps best placed to take forward, but it must work with scholars from around the world. So the few elements of that agenda are the following. One is systems thinking. We believe more work on systems thinking, especially complex adaptive systems thinking, is required in public policy scholarship. That's the first pillar of this research and scholarly agenda. complex adaptive systems thinking, and there is quite a bit of work now done on complexity and public policy, so that scholarship is growing well. We have a second line of thinking, and that is quantum-like frameworks and quantum social science. That scholarship is also growing, testified by books like Quantum International Relations, quantum insights into cognition theory, into financial decision making, and so on. And then the third area of work is the area that we are calling applied spirituality. And that applied spirituality is secular spirituality. One of the challenges here, of course, is language. When you use the word spirituality, people get, like Ramesh, he gets very scared that I'm going to say something about religion and spiritual. The spirituality we are talking about is the human experience of their own true nature, of their own reality. Scholars, is it not time that our own true nature, our own reality, must get into the equation of public policy, which ultimately is for our own betterment? So we have heard a bit of behavioral science. You know, there was a time in behavioral economics when that was not considered respectable. What was psychology doing with neoclassical economics? That has changed. And it is along the same trajectory that we are proposing this kind of work. So when we interweave then complexity science, quantum-like thinking, and we are drawing from the latest neuroscience and cognitive thinking as well, cognitive theories, we are weaving them together to produce so far three things. One is we are calling integral public policy, drawing from the work of Ken Wilber and others on the integral meta-theory approach. We are drawing from work such as integral yoga. But then we are also producing a framework that we are calling enlightened public policy. And you can see the pun with enlightenment, but it is really secular and academically rigorous since it's being published by peer-reviewed journals. And the third area is the area that we are calling wise policy making. And now I don't know whether anyone can really have a contest, a challenge of making policy a bit more wise. Why do we say that? Look at evidence-based policy. If we look at the spectrum from data to information to knowledge and wisdom, and look at that package as evidence-based for policy, you have a lot and lots of data, less information, even less knowledge, and virtually zero wisdom in the evidence-based policy process. That is the agenda which I believe that Asia can lead in the 21st century. That is the agenda which I encourage us, those of us who are bold enough to take that step forward and to join us in taking this leadership from wherever you are. But if you are in Asia, you should have no choice but to work to take this agenda forward. Thank you.
So, pardon? Yeah, I think we all, yes. So if we could remove the podium, that would be great. So thank you very much for all our panel speakers. We now will use the rest of the time. Well, we will spend about 20 minutes to 30 minutes for a round of questions from our moderator, me and Ramesh. And then at around 11:30, we will open to the floor for your questions and comments, as well as those who are online with us too. So please prepare your questions in advance. But Ramesh, would you like to kick us off with the first question, please?
Yeah, thanks for the engaging presentations. I want to take you beyond the specifics that you've already discussed and invite your thoughts on the common patterns and divergences that you may have observed in trends in public policy, both in research and practice. What common patterns do you see? What are the divergences you see? Can we generalize about the entire continent of Asia? If not the entire continent, are there regions about which you could generalize? So it's not a structured answer, just share your thoughts on it. And I'm going to transgress and unchain my co-moderator, who has been restrained by her moderation role. I know she has a lot of opinion on the subject. So, Ora, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. So allow me to say more than what I should, right, as the moderator. So I've been observing. Yes, thank you, Ramesh. So I've been observing the evolution of the paradigms of public policy and administration for a while, and I think we've been influenced by some well-established ideas that we see cases from predominantly weird countries, using the acronym of Qing, with full respect. But basically, we've seen the idea of traditional public policy that follows the law-based policy making for voters, and we aim to achieve best practices of governments. And we focus on the bureaucracy's role to be the technocrats. The second paradigm that we've seen since the 1980s, 1990s is the new public management ideas of efficiency, of entrepreneurship, of contracts being provided by governments for the private sector. And we focused on results and indicators. So we focus on customers, right? And then the third one, which is also well known, which is the collaborative governance idea of working as networks, focusing on the relationships, focusing on the citizens and not just the customers, nor just the voters. But I like to suggest that, especially my observation and hearing from our panelists, there's an emerging paradigm now in Asia, and maybe other parts of the world can also jump in, but the idea of following behavioral science, especially because we have the ability to collect large-scale data easily through our digital methodologies, as well as this idea of applied spirituality, where we're starting to focus on the actual goals of policies. Could it be not about only rule-based, not only about market-based, not only about network-based, but rather about sustainability and justice-based that is coming from our inner selves, that we wish to have love and compassion for all. So I'm giving you an example of Thailand, where I see this emerging quite strongly, where the government is actually supporting research in applied spirituality and pushing it into policy. Right now, my team is working on climate change policy with the Climate Change Bureau, of looking through climate action with the inner dimension. So I'll stop there to say that this emerging new paradigm, I think it's something worth to think about. Thank you, Ramesh. Yeah, but I think others might have a
Yeah, Naresh, please share your thoughts on this. Yeah.
Right. I didn't mention much about the practical side of things. So what does this mean for practical policy applications? A few quick examples might help us to get the point more clearly. So in climate change, that's a really important area. Clearly, we have set all kinds of goals. We went to Paris as an international community, agreed on nationally determined contributions and so on. And 2023 was one of the hottest years in the history of the recorded temperatures. We had promised to try and stay below 1.5. We have exceeded 1.5, something fundamentally is missing. And I believe that Ora is on the right path of, it's not that all else is not important. We are not at all saying economic investment, clean energy, circular economy, all the technology stuff, all of that continues to be critically important, but unless this missing dimension is also brought in, then we might continue to fail. That's the big point. When we produced the book on sustainable development and applied spirituality, this was one of our arguments. This was one of the arguments, and we had 15 scholars from around the world. One of our scholars, Thomas Legrand, from France, in fact, who is the author of an independent book called The Politics of Being. So all we have been taught at university, things might have to change, where we only studied political economy as who gets what, how, the material side of life. Now we are beginning to write and research on the politics of being. So that's a very different thing, because I am not calling myself a human having or a human doing. I'm calling myself a human being, but I'm not studying the politics of human being. But we are also putting out a book coming up. Its release date is 15th of August from Routledge, on global philosophies for AI ethics. When we looked at all the AI ethical statements in the world, 80 of them, all of them made Western philosophical assumptions and economic assumptions. So we wondered, are there no other philosophical sources of ethics? What about Confucianism and Taoism and so on, 12 or 14 other rich sources of ethics? Ubuntu, indigenous peoples. We have drawn from all of those, and that book will reflect these alternative sources of ethics. So those are some of the concrete examples that I think help us to understand the importance of this agenda.
Thanks so much, Naresh. Thanks so much, Naresh. Ching, please. You would come from a different angle, and let's hear that.
No, I mean, I don't know the answer to the question, because it's an interesting question, but it's not one that I've sort of contemplated too deeply, except in the area of water. So I'll give you an example of water, right? So at a time, there was once upon a time where the Western model of water management came to Asia. So water privatization, the French model and the English model, and they were transplanted to Philippines and Jakarta. At the time, the world's largest privatization effort, and they did not succeed. And at the time, they thought, well, it's because the context was so different, it's the Western context, and then the less developed countries had a different context. But actually, now, you can't hardly find them anywhere, right? So I think one of the few areas where it's still privatized is Thames Water. And then Thames Water, of course, is in some trouble, as British colleagues will say. So I think it's useful to know that there is such a thing as Asia. And I think there's usefulness to think of heuristics or rough differentiation. But at the same time, in terms of policy, it's useful to think sometimes it's not Asia. Sometimes it's something else. And it could just be institutional forms. So I'm not saying that it's always not about the context or the geography or the region, but sometimes it's not.
Thanks, Ching. Ella?
Yeah, maybe just some addition into the conversation. Obviously, in my field of political science in the Philippines, political theory is a very small field, but I have some colleagues who are doing more engaged work in terms of collecting and analyzing and publishing political philosophy from Filipino writers. Not all of them are political scientists. Some of them are leaders, but they have written quite a few ideas about leadership, policy, the relationship between government and the people, and some of my colleagues are working on that. We do have one scholar who have focus on looking at indigenous practices as a way of analyzing Philippine politics, using the concept of traditional dance as a spectacle, as a way of discussing, for instance, the relationship between voters and the leaders, or using indigenous ways of looking at leadership and organic hierarchical relationships in terms of explaining why we have different expectations about our leaders, and the public have different views about their relationship with their leaders. At the same time, in terms of research scholarship, not only in public policy, but in the larger field of the social sciences, we do have scholars doing more quantitative work on people's values, Filipino values, and attitudes towards issues and policies, their stand on certain public policy issues. But at the same time, qualitatively, there's a growing field, and this can be seen in the theses, dissertations, and journal articles now emerging from the Philippines, focusing on the narratives of ordinary people as they deal with problems of climate change, environmental disasters, environment, and also the pandemic. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to let Ora wear her moderator hat
Yes.
and ask question.
Well, I think first we need to bring up the Slido. If our team could help us bring up the Slido. You have this QR code where you can also take and then have your questions to us on the panel here. Shall we focus on this first question? I think everyone can see it on the screen. In some countries in Asia, it is very difficult to critique the government as part of policy analysis. How do you address this while relying on government funding for your work and roles where governments fund the university? This is a very good and delicate question. And as our panelists are preparing to share their answers. And Ramesh, I unbind you as well in case you have any thoughts in your long-term research career. For myself, I just like to say that in Thailand as well, we have some restrictions for certain topics. But the best thing to do is try to understand the worries that the government has or the funder has. Sometimes I think the worries are preventable if we have an honest conversation with the people that we'd like to work with or the topics that we'd like to work on. That's from my experience, yeah. But any of you could take on this, yeah.
No, I read this and I was like, did they mean to say Asia or did they mean to say somewhere else? Well, did you want to answer?
Well, I can quickly offer, that was going to be the beginning of my own answer, because count your blessings. I live in Canada most of the time, and some of the time in India, and neither place is easy to deal with governments now. Canada perhaps much easier than our neighbor to the south. And in that country, we all know the challenges of funding, of not only new funding, but existing funding disappearing for academic research. But I think two things come to my mind. I have thought a little bit about it. One is, I find that governments tend to starve universities and researchers of funding when those researchers or research activities tend to not be in line with what that particular regime is advocating at that point of time, but it's not for forever. And thank God that governments change. So sometimes you have to struggle through until that particular government changes. On other occasions, If your university is completely dependent on government funding, then I don't know that there are major alternative sources of funding. You apply for a research grant, it's probably going to take you 18 months or 3 years to get that money. So it's not a viable alternative for scholars. Universities have to be the sort of developing their research grant portfolios. And many universities do. So I would say that when the times are good, universities should be developing their grant portfolios in a much bigger way. So when the hardship comes for that 4 or 5 year period, where your research output is not aligning with government priorities, that you can survive. That's the only pragmatic answer I think I have. But these moderators probably know better.
Of course, based on the experience of academics from the University of the Philippines, of course, it's state-funded, but because of the limits of the budget, we do have a larger research agenda that we also propose for funding from partners, donors, and we encourage development of memorandum of agreement with different organizations. At the same time, also, because of the reputation that the university has also built, the scholars have also developed, we do have good personal and institutional relationships with specific government agencies which appreciate the type of evidence research that we give. So it's true, definitely, that the leadership or the administration at the national level matters. Definitely, during the Duterte administration, it was a lot harder for us in terms of criticisms, but we continued and we persisted, and we actually even helped Congress, the two houses of Congress, and different departments actually produce evidence-based policy inputs. But, well, now the situation has changed a bit, but we are continuing critical engagement, for instance, with the Defense Department and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, because they do need our expertise, although many of them also have a tendency of actually having certain stereotypes about us in the University of the Philippines. Although we always say, do not look at the University of the Philippines as a breeding ground for communists and radicals, because look at the School of Economics. It's the main think tank of the neoliberal government policy through decades. So we say, don't look at us in terms of stereotypes. We have different expertise and different areas of empirical research to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella. I think Ella's experience echoes my experience of working with the armed forces of Thailand as well, that they would be, oh, Aura, you are too progressive and liberal for us. However, when we go into the actual problem of, let's say, migration or education for our refugees, then it's the same. We see the same problem, but the strategy to design the policy, we still have to go through the different options. So yeah, thank you. So shall we move on to another interesting question? Can I choose the first one? Can spirituality be a source of emancipatory power in public policy without becoming a tool of exclusion or moral authoritarianism? So not limited to Ramesh only. Everyone could jump into this one, obviously.
Should I lead off, maybe? It'll be good to hear all of us. So the way we have been trying to do our work to guard against this, yes, there is a possibility that anything you do can be, the agenda can be sort of get appropriated and be taken in a different direction from which was originally intended. We do a cross kind of comparative analysis of wisdom sources. So we look at the mystical core of Christianity. That is not the Gospels. We go to the mystical core, the works of Thomas Merton, Thomas Keating, the Trappist monks, Desert Fathers, and so on. And there we find insights that could be useful. We look at Sufism, the spiritual dimension of Islam, and then we look at the spiritual core similarly for all the wisdom traditions, and then we seek that convergence. Fortunately, the convergence is extremely strong. It's about saying the same thing. When you go to the dogma and the doctrine of the religions, then we get division and all kinds of problems because they have to run organizations and raise money and maintain the flock and all of that stuff. So that's one thing. But we also go beyond the mystical core and then seek convergence with modern science. So it's about, like I mentioned, our quantum physics work, our complexity sciences, neuroscience, and so on. And we draw from that. So it is really very secular, so that the danger of being, pushed on a particular direction and agenda is not that great. But I guess just like in the guarding of democracy, we have to be alert at all times.
Thank you, Naresh. If I could just share as well that in Thailand, the Health Promotion Board has spiritual health different from mental health. So studying spiritual health, the ability to realize the interconnectedness of ourselves to nature and to everything actually, and to go beyond sort of just our ego. It's something that luckily the Thai government, the Health Promotion Board understands. And so in going with this spiritual approach in this secular manner, scientifically studied and with clear definitions and ways of measurement, whether it's through neuroscience of measuring the brain waves to doing surveys, I would support that it's still very much evidence-based and it has emancipatory power. Definitely the fine line of saying that going from spirituality to sort of traditional religion, that's the fine line that we would need to carefully thread and see what would be most constructive for using such worldviews for policy interventions. So, yeah.
One of the things I might add, if I might, and that is that the word spirituality, as I mentioned, might be a troublesome word. Sometimes I have thought, or we have thought about looking at the words like consciousness or awareness. Awareness-based systems change is now a well-established area of scholarship. There is a journal of awareness-based systems change and so on. So we struggle with these words. But when we attempted to move out of the language of spirituality, people say, you're going to lose a lot by moving out of that. So we have to live with that challenge, that kind of constant challenge. And in order to get these ideas into actual public policy practice, we realize that we have to work at state level and at community level. We have to take it down. So we are now starting to do that, and we are beginning to work at community level and state level and getting local governments engaged. I suspect that it will grow bottom up rather than always have to be top down in the policy world.
Okay. So maybe we can go to another question. This one is on the, given the increasing emphasis on evidence-based policymaking and the growing role of AI, can critical thinking, particularly skills like evaluating evidence, data, arguments, and perspectives, could be considered as core competency for policy capacity? I think this question on policy capacity, and I think many of us in the room, including Ramesh, has written on policy capacity. Maybe Ella and Ching, you'd like to respond to this growing new policy capacities? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, as a graduating capacity, as not just policy capacity, the capacity to make good policies. I mean, certainly all these skills are important for government officials. But in general, I mean, if you're thinking of just general workplace, not specific to government, all these are essential skills of the future workplaces. So I would say they are foundational skills, and many universities now at the undergraduate level require these as core competencies. So I would say yes, definitely, for governments, and as a function of building capacity, you need that first.
And do you think with the AI and, of course, the embedded digital technology in today where we can measure things very easy, your experiment, I think it was done online, you don't need to travel to all these countries to roll the dice. The capacity, if we have, it's probably exponential, right, in our research. Would you agree to that?
Yeah. Very much so. So, for us, if we're looking at data and looking at scale, it's a big change, right? But for us also, as members of a community that looks at the human dimension, it poses ethical limits on what we should do. So what we can do has expanded exponentially. What we should do remains the same.
Yeah, can I add a little bit? Yes, definitely AI is a big challenge, and many of us in universities in the Philippines are grappling with how do we maximize the use of AI in our research, in our education, but at the same time still maintain how to develop the skills of critical thinking among students, among researchers, and at the same time how to involve AI in the work that we do in education and in research, but at the same time to focus also on the ethical aspect of using AI and who will benefit from the use of AI. But up to now, debates are still ongoing.
Thank you, Ella. Ramesh?
Yeah, just a very brief comment. We may be overusing the word capacity to explain too much. Because capacity, to speak of capacity at the national level or even government level is maybe too much. There may be pockets within the government that have very high capacity. Take this conference for an example. It is so well organized, but we can't generalize about universities in Thailand or anywhere. This is very specific to this organization that has managed to muster the capacity to do it. It has been said by many people that India can organize an election for 1 billion people, which Americans who have been doing it for so long seem to do, but can't manage traffic lights because they require different capacities. So we shouldn't be talking about capacity of the American government or the Indian government based on these specific instances. We can really meaningfully talk about it at the organization level, maybe local government level, maybe even provincial government. But yeah, as a general concept, we should restrain ourselves.
Thank you, Ramesh. So let's go with a very quite, what's the word? Bold question. Do you think policy domain is dominated by global West? That's a big question. Anyone would like to answer that? I mean, do we prescribe to this, West and non-West in the way we conduct our research, the way we choose our topics, the special issues of journals? Is it? Yeah. Anyone would like to? Of course, there's no right or wrong. This is our views. Yes. Yes, Naresh.
Well, just a quick comment. I'm struggling with the word policy domain. We have policy scholarship, we have policy practice. So the West, obviously, because of its geopolitical and economic strength, has an impact on global policy. Clearly, they have an outsized impact on what global policies are taking shape, the kind of neoclassical, individualistic, economistic policy outlook. I think that's clear in my mind. In terms of policy scholarship, I guess because of resources and how long they've been doing research and so on, again, they probably are dominant. All the more reason why we need to get more action in Asia. And when I say Asia, I simply mean East, South, and Southeast Asia is what I have in mind. And I think it's not only geography, but it has enough. I think we can even define an Asian psyche in this aspect, in this part, but philosophy, spiritual traditions, and so on, enough is there to be called the Asia region, for which we can begin to see an agenda emerging.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm emerging as the contrarian in this panel about, no, so I don't know if you remember, Grace, that you had so kindly invited me at once to do a keynote on the IAD, the institutional analysis development, the Elinor Ostrom framework, the IAD, which I used. And at the time, it was fashionable, and I think still in some places talk about colonization of academic ideas. And because I used the IAD, the audience asked me, do you feel this is a Western concept? And I said, no, I don't. I just use it. It's just, yeah, you know, Lynn Ostrom is American, but, you know, we use the concept. And she says, yeah, you don't feel that you're using a Western idea because you've been colonized and you've been sort of brainwashed into. And I was like, not really. But maybe I have been and I don't know. But I think sometimes the pedigree of the ideas are not important. The power of the ideas, I think, are important. And I think sometimes the idea exists with different handles. And we use a handle that everybody knows. And if it's a handle that has been, I mean, it doesn't matter whether policy sciences or a specific framework, whatever. If a handle has a name that everybody uses, it doesn't matter the pedigree of the name. In the same way, I mean, that's as true in policy sciences as it is in mathematics. So Richard Feynman, when he first discovered for himself calculus, he used a different sign for the calculus, for the differentiation symbol. And he thought, like, why would I use someone else's symbol for differentiation? But then, so he used his own symbol, and he found that nobody knew what he was talking about. So sometimes the power of ideas really is, if we are a community of scholars, we use the handle for ideas that is a universal handle among scholars.
Yeah. I think, of course, many Filipino scholars have a propensity to use Western concepts and approaches, and it's probably because many of the more established scholars took their graduate courses in the West, but now increasingly more and more younger scholars are taking their PhDs in universities in Asia and in other parts of the world. So there's more exposure to other concepts and other practices and approaches. But I think one thing that we are doing in the Philippines is to use concepts that may have been introduced by the West and see how they are seen from the perspective of Filipinos. For instance, we have research looking into how Filipinos look at the concept of trust. Is it the same or different from the West? How do we define human security? And I think human security for the longest time have been defined from a more individualistic perspective, but in research in the Philippines and in some other non-Western countries, there's more emphasis on community and families as a reference point for human security. And regarding disasters, Filipino scholars are problematizing the concept of resilience, because many of us hate being called resilient. Filipino people have been considered resilient, but it's being used as an excuse by the government not to respond to problems of the environment and disasters. So what does resiliency mean? So we're trying to Philippinize or decolonize the term resilience. Thank you.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So we go with one more question. Are there anyone that you read and you think that you would promote? I could see Ching helping to answer how can behavioral psychology be applied to design public policies that promote pro-environmental behavior in rapid urbanizing Asian cities. I think psychology is another nice field that cuts across all humans, of course, and that how can we, be as efficient as possible, I guess, to design our interventions. Ching, any thoughts on this one?
So this is the depressing state of human psychology. That's why basically we are all going to, sink or, get heat stroke. Or I mean, what we tend to do as humans is extremely bad for the environment because of long-term discounting. We don't. So all of us feel we should be pro-environment, but all of us are still eating meat and so on, right? In Cambridge, where I visited recently, all the students, a majority of the students voted for a vegan menu. So everybody is pro-environment, so the Cambridge University now as a whole university has decided to support vegan menus. However, the catering managers are all complaining because after the turnouts for dinners for vegan nights once a week, and this is once a week, is the lowest for the whole week. So behavioral psychologies can be applied to design public policies if we understand both the intention and the gap between the intention and actual behavior. So for example, some of the most successful policies have been in water saving. To understand how behavioral psychology can help people to save water, we install water meter that shows you how much water you're actually using when you're showering. And then when you do know, and when the information is more salient, people do reduce the showers. However, we have found also that between private behavior and infrastructural change is the far more powerful motivator. So it's kind of depressing, but also useful for us to know the limits of what we can change, how we can change.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ching. Ramesh and I would like to invite those who are here in person, if you'd like to take the mic and ask your question or make comments for our panelists, you can also do that. Can I see a show of hands? Would anyone like to have a question? Yes, we have one lady here. Yes, can I see more hands so we can do sort of preparation in advance? Yeah. Okay, we have another participant in the back, a lady in black. Sorry, I am referring to your. Oh, is it lady or not lady? I'm not wearing my glasses. Apologies if I get anything wrong. Okay, so we have two questions. Please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jesslyn, and I'm from the University of Melbourne, and I have one question. So it's really interesting to hear from the public policy perspective, and I'm just wondering. So this is my questions, basically. Despite the good intentions in public policy, which I know many of us shared, some policy, I think, might have some unintended consequences once implemented, and even worse, may be used in terms of like government policies, may be used by quote-unquote bad government to justify their actions. As to say that, oh, this policy is backed by academics and research and everything. So how do you, as a public policy scholars, navigate this to produce a more wise policy as mentioned previously? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we take this question first. Pardon?
I wondered that you should take a few to get
a few. Okay. So how do we make our policies wise to prevent unintended consequences of policies? And in the back just now, I think someone has a microphone in the back just now, right? Yeah, okay, in the back first.
Hello, yes. Hello, my name is Giles. I'm from Yes, Ajahn, it's me. I'm from the School of Public Policy, Chiang Mai University. And my question is, should we always see Asia as a laboratory of public policy where knowledge is applied and not generated? Isn't like thinking of Asia this way as, is it some kind of risking another form of colonization from happening?
Okay. Thank you very much, Giles. Apologies, I couldn't see you clearly. Age, yes. Okay, there's one more question, yes. Yes, the gentleman, can you raise your hand so we can give you the microphone?
Look here, I have one. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I am Dr. Santosh Gidam from the School of Public Health, D.Y. Patil University, India. So it was suggested in this panel discussion that spirituality can be a possible solution for making effective policies. Now there are Asian countries which have a long tradition of like following the philosophy of Buddha or Confucius. So my question is, how do you reflect on the policy making in these countries? If your argument is accepted, then perhaps the policy making in these countries are better. And if they are not, then how do you like respond to your suggestion that spirituality should be given a prominent role in policy making? Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got 3 questions. I think, okay, one more. Yes.
May I? My name is Sudarshan. I'm the Dean of the School of Government and Public Policy at the Jindal Global University. I'm a colleague of Naresh. So I'm obviously very sympathetic and in agreement with much of what he said. But I'm a little concerned about trying to define, it's fine to define spirituality and keep sort of religion aside because religion is divisive. But in reality, we have to take into account that religions influence the way people behave and think. And so you might have a broad division between, you might call the Abrahamic religions, which kind of put human beings at the center of the universe and think of the world as nature and the environment and the earth having been given by God for the use and betterment of human beings. And so this privileging of human beings versus, not privileging human beings and to treat all life forms, animate, inanimate, everything that is around in more or less the same way. So there is a difference in terms of how religions impact the behavior of people. So I think there's a necessity to engage with the substantive content of the main faiths that influence people and not simply brush that aside and say, oh, we are talking about spirituality and the interior landscape and not about religions. I think we have to come to terms with what is being said in different faiths and the implications of that for, say, policy. Nietzsche once said that there's been only the one Christian and he died on the cross. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we need to pause for this round so that our panelists could react or provide their comments to some of the questions being raised on spirituality, on Asia always as laboratory, and also more maybe anticipatory governance. How can we reduce the unintended consequences of policies? So any one of you would like to tackle some of those questions, please?
Do you want to go? Or? Yeah. No, I hesitate to answer because my problem with spirituality is how do you capture that as a dependent variable? Like that's the thing, right? What is it? What's the ontology of it? How do you investigate it? What's the proxy? And if you're a government, and I say, okay, X is a dependent variable and it's like really powerful, how do I'm going to implement spirituality now, like, but, so I understand Aura's distinction between that, spiritual health and mental health. It's different, but the difference is mental health, you can sort of have that as a dependent variable. So if I were to ask, and sorry, I'm not answering the question and I'm asking a new one. If I were to distinguish between mental health and spiritual health, I think that would be the first step for me to discover what kind of variable it is, and then we can investigate it.
Okay, so that's the one on the spiritual one, which I could share the Thai health constitution, which has been defined quite clearly the difference. How about the question on unintended consequences of policy? My own approach now at the School of Public Policy here in Chiang Mai is we focus a lot on foresight and scenarios. So we engage with policy analysis that help people think of what would be the unintended consequences. We do that in advance or together with the actual policy analysis. So foresight thinking, I think, is also quite big in policy analysis these days.
I have an example of unintended consequences, but Ella, do you? Yeah, I have an example, a rare example of failure, actually, in Singapore, where it's actually public, right? So I know the specific question is, what are the unintended consequences of policy, and how do you ensure that your research is not used by governments to manipulate wrong? I don't know the answer to the second one, because who knows how your research will be used, right? I mean, you publish the research and you make it public. So the second question I can't answer, but the first one is really interesting. What are the unintended consequences of policy? So I'll give the example of organs donations. And organs donations is one of the most cited nudges across the world for defaults. So the received wisdom is, if you change a policy to a default, you should use the default that you want the outcome to be. So for organs donation, you should change the default from not donors to donors. And that's what Singapore did. And overnight, because of a change in law, the organs donations became changed from opt-in to opt-out. That means everybody's automatically an organs donor unless you opt out. And one unintended consequence of that is, I mean, if you look at that and you think a policy is a great success because the number of organs donors went up 50 times, you think that's really successful. Unintended consequences, the number of actual transplants didn't actually go up. And because of this default change, the nature of consent for organs donations changed. It became presumed consent. And actually, that's not good enough for something like organs donations.
So if I might quickly add, obviously I should comment quickly on the spirituality debate, and that is, I do not work on the area of religion. That's not an area of my interest. There are those who might have an interest in working on that, and we have no problem with that. But you ask a really important question, number, what is the independent variable? There is now good scholarship and literature emerging on spiritual capital, spiritual intelligence, with measurable indicators associated with them. We are looking, the core of what we look at is oneness, the degree of oneness, of holism in the thinking, and there are variables that one can use to measure these. There is danger here, and the danger is that you make even spirituality transactional. So that's a bit of a danger, but we can, I believe, deal with. That's what we work with, and then it works really well with modern scientific concepts, and then we can fuse them together and get something pretty rigorous. On the first question, one of the answers on this is, I think, to work with think tanks. So you have your academic scholars, but you partner with think tanks and NGOs and even political parties. And that is one way to solve that problem. But I like the question also from the student at Chiang Mai University from the School of Government and Public Policy. And the agenda we are trying to create, or I am proposing that we create, is really to move to a policy shaper rather than a policy taker, to avoid this colonialism, which I think has been going on and continues to go on, and that has to shift. So I am hopeful that the young scholars would take that approach and move out of that kind of conditionality.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with the question regarding what's the role of Asia. Shall we continue being a laboratory? I think what is going on now is that we are no longer just a laboratory for Western concepts, Western scholarship, or others to look into. I think increasingly looking at the publications and looking at the type of policies that we are proposing, we are actually looking inwards and actually doing our own case studies of what works, what are not working, the best and the worst practices, and what are the lessons. And I think it's part of our responsibility to highlight the good cases, the innovative cases of good policies that have been developing, whether at the local level, at the national level, or at the regional level, and also discuss the lessons of the failed policies that have happened and what can we learn from that in terms of moving forward, including, for instance, looking at the unintended consequences and how do we avoid that in future policies. But at the same time, also, I think part of being a shaper of policies and policy studies is also making sure that our partnerships and our collaboration with other scholars are also covered by ethical research, ethical partnership, and genuine collaboration and recognition of the contributions of each one, whether you're from Asia or from outside. And increasingly, for instance, one practice in my university is that the ethics review board also look into, if you have a foreign partner in the research, what are the responsibilities? Will the local researcher be given enough recognition? What of the knowledge of the culture of the locality or respect for the local practices and institutions in doing the research? Not just on public policy, but on general practices that in a way recognize the identity as well as the culture and the context of Asia and different parts of Asia, instead of just being a laboratory for concepts that are foreign to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ila. Shall we take one last round of comments and questions from the audience? Can I see a show of hands? Yes, in the back. One, and then are there any more?
Should I go?
Okay,
Hi.
this second person. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Molly from Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok. Just a comment and perhaps a sharing about the psychology, behavioral psychology in policy design and in relation to public policy teaching. So we've been incorporating design thinking and user experience design in the teaching of public policy because understanding people's psychology and behavior is a part of the public policy principle of how to make the policy more effective. But I think the most challenging part is when in reality the government will probably have to change the perspective of viewing itself as a ruler or a regulator to citizen partner or maybe actual service provider. So I think design thinking is a really good way to incorporate in policy study to make people really understand about where the decision making come from, not only on the side of the policymaker, but on the side of people making decision. And in Thailand, we have a success doing this with decreasing tobacco and cigarette use policy before. So I think that's just would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ka, for your sharing. There was another hand, yes?
Hello, I am Leif Kalev, Professor of Political Studies in Tallinn University, Estonia. And my question is related to digitalization. Digitalization, and especially the emergence of artificial intelligence, is transforming all domains of life, and it is likely to continue in a foreseeable future. So do you have some thoughts how it would impact public policy and its research? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, there's a question. Yes?
Thank you so much for your sharing. I just wanted to share my written question. This is with an agreement. Sorry, my name is Chie Yamada from Tokyo, NGO member. And this is with an agreement statement to the first paradigm that including the ethical dimension. As a practitioner, how a kind of nature of fragility, natural environment, could be taken into the next coming governance system. This is maybe related to wise policy. Thank you.
May I repeat your question? How can environmental... I'm not sure if I understood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Repeat. How a kind of nature of fragility could be taken into the next coming governance system? For example, how or who?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe we can have you type it in so we can also help you read as well. But I think it's about environment and how can we take in the environment concerns into policies. Yes, okay. Fragility of nature, that's the term. Okay, thank you, Ching. Yes, thank you very much. So we have one more in the back. So we have one question on AI. We have one question on vitality of nature into policy.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Manish. I come from the National Law School of India University, which is in Bangalore, India. I want to say, I want to ask the panel one thing. Thank you all for your very interesting interventions. As someone who comes from the field of law, this discussion has been very fascinating to listen to because public policy and law are sort of related, allied fields. And a lot of behavioral economics is also things that we think about in law. So how do we make people comply? And I thought the spirituality question was actually very interesting because because it could, in addition to motivating individual choice and individual behavior, it might also serve as a normative framework for evaluating policy decisions, right? So when we make decisions about the public welfare, and we have choices, and governments have choices between two decisions to make, we make those decisions using an ethical framework which could be informed perhaps by spirituality. And I'll give and just a very short example, because I come from a country whose constitution was designed, or at least one of the individuals involved in the design of our constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, was deeply influenced by Buddhist philosophy. And there's recent work that's being done on this, but some of our values of ethics, some of our values of equality and justice that form in our constitution have come from spiritual value. So these are spiritual questions. These are questions of value. And I think, and I would invite the panel to reflect on when we evaluate normatively policy decisions or policy choices, can the spiritual provide a value framework for determining those answers? Thank you.
Thank you. So perhaps one more in the back. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Professor Namrata Singh, and I'm from the University of Delhi. Carrying it forward what Manish said, I just would like to congratulate Professor Naresh for bringing the idea of this framework, because I firmly believe what brought us here is not going to take forward. In the panel itself, we heard that the SDG goals are not working, the geopolitical strategy that we are seeing is not working. So if this panel gave us a viewpoint that this might work, there is no harm in looking at the ethical and the value framework, which is already there. If we got away from the semantics of religion, spirituality, all these words, my idea is something that works for the humanity. If we are able to draw it from our older testaments, why not? So let me congratulate Professor Nareshji, and we are really waking forward, and we would like to put our best foot forward in providing a solution to some of the burning problems that our entire world is facing. And as policy, I would not like to say as makers, but as a people who provide the inputs to these policy makers, I think this kind of ethical and a value framework which brings the individual at the center stage is a direction in the right step. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very well said. So may I invite our panelists to react or comment, short ones, before we do the sort of final note that you'd like to leave us with. Yeah. Naresh, would you like to go first?
Yes, quickly. Fully agreed with the last two speakers. The only caveat, and commenting on my colleague Dean Sudarshan's comment as well, is that if you are going to use spiritual insights and ethical values in public policy, I believe they will have to be secular in nature, obviously because of the division of government and the division of state and church, right? So if you're going to keep that principle, we will have to work in a secular manner, and that is very much possible, because the principles we are talking about, or the paradigm, is a very dramatic shift from a paradigm of individualism to paradigm of relationality. And the paradigm of relationality is the paradigm supported by systems thinking and quantum-like sciences as well. So they will work really well together. I should mention from our colleague in law that we do have a colleague at the National Law University in India in Gandhinagar in Ahmedabad, who Professor Parmeshwaran, who is working on law and spirituality as well as colleagues at Yale University now doing this. So the research is progressing quite well. On the issue of fragility of nature, I believe that the big problem of the SDGs is the existing paradigm of economics that we use for public policy is one of separation. We see humans as separate from nature. That is where the fragility arises. When we recognize that oneness and that source of oneness, the fragility will be gone, because we would be destroying ourselves, unless we are suicidal, of course, which maybe few people are, but I don't think the majority of humans are suicidal. So once they recognize the oneness, the illusion of separation, then we will begin to get there. I think that's the way forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Naresh. Jean?
So I just wanted to make one final comment about the environment and the use of behavioral science for environment, and to answer the question on compliance. How do we make people more pro-environment? Money and fear. So money, and this is a plug for my colleague Damien Soon's presentation later on, money is a great motivator for a heck of a lot of behavior, including environment. So we have shown again and again there's some elasticity if you price something correctly. So in relation to water, of course, price water correctly. We did an experiment to show air conditioning use. You think, what will affect people and air conditioning use? Well, if you make air conditioning specific to the person, if you bill the person according to the amount of air conditioning he used, the amount does go down. So I think money and the way we make people pay for environmental capital, clean air, water, and so on, that will make a real difference. The other great motivator is fear, and I say this in relation to what you said about compliance. It's so important to have strong regulations and strong enforcement in relation to private companies.
Yeah, and very briefly on the how do we make people recognize the fragility of the environment in some of the positive cases of good environmental policies at the local level, advocacy groups with the help of scholars that produced research were able to connect how caring for the environment, conserving water, conserving forests would actually be beneficial for the lives of people, better health, better economic livelihood opportunities, and at the same time we do have advocacy groups, not only environmental based organizations that also try to challenge the neoliberal exploitative nature of economic policy, so that there will be more efforts to actually conserve the environment, and in the process produce more policies that are useful and beneficial not only for people but also for the environment. So the fragility of the environment will be also addressed. Thank you.
I think we would like to address the AI question.
Yeah, I just realized we missed that one in 1 minute. And 3 points. One is that we need ethical guardrails on AI so that we make the link between public policy and AI by putting in the ethical dimension of public policy. That's point one. Point two is that the governance of AI cannot be using linear, reductionist, deterministic style of governance that we have had in the past. It has to be more evolutionary because the technology is advancing so rapidly. So we would advocate a complex adaptive systems approach for the governance of AI. And the third point is that in our teaching now, how do we evaluate public policy? How do we design public policy? Using natural language processing and all the available capacities of AI are really important. You should not be teaching a course on policy evaluation unless you are including the role of AI in that course.
Thank you, Naresh. So I think what I can say is I still see even more stronger this emerging of a paradigm that Asia can claim, perhaps, of a new approach to policy analysis. And this is advertisement alert. Oh, we have a book coming out called Handbook of Public Policy Analysis in Asia. It will come out this September, and many of the authors of the book are here. So we advocate for this idea of putting upfront the sustainability part of all of the things we do. So the question on nature, and we are very open to using technology like AI, but in a way that is ethically informed. And the new approach of, or the very rapid growing approach of evidence-based through behavioral economics, behavioral psychology, including the spiritual approach that is up and coming and waiting to be tested, waiting to be observed and studied, that links to the inner development goals, that this would address the sustainable development paradox that we are in between the capitalist economic success that many countries have built together, but we need the governance and the policy to catch up so that we can continue to be sustainable together. So I'd like to just say that, and the Philippines case really showed us how this is all being implemented and have that empowerment and emancipation almost to be ourselves and to not be the laboratory, but rather the more of the policy shapers and influencing the global domains of public policy. I think that's what I got, but I'm very biased, of course, because I was the one, together with Ramesh, putting all of this together. I hope the audience has received some ideas of this emerging new paradigm as a good option for us going forward. But I'll leave it to Ramesh to maybe conclude and take us to landing shot. That's what I like to say.
Yeah, hi everybody. My takeaway from this conversation was that Asia here is not a geographical location. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for urging for a different way of looking at it. It's challenging the orthodoxy. And I think we are doing ourselves a disservice by calling it Western and Asian. There are plenty of people searching for different ways of looking at issues even in the West. We are not recognizing those massive efforts being put all around the world by casting it as Western and non-Western or Asian. So let's join hands with those who we share our opinion with, regardless of geography, and look for some different ways of doing things. This is how science advances, by looking at the same issue from different perspectives. I have a robust argument, and towards the end of my career, I have discovered, and this is a self-advertisement, abduction as an approach, tentative hypothesizing, exploring different, the best possible explanation for a phenomena. But I'll stop there, but I really learned a lot. Thank you very much. And unless somebody else has a thankful note, we will end here.
Yes. So please join me to give a big round of applause to our panelists today. So we will now no longer stand between you and your lunch. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.